My dear student, as we are discussing about the selection techniques, so far we have discussed number of selection techniques including application form, employment testing, and etc. But today we are going to discuss one of the most important selection technique, which is called as employment interviewing. So the employment interview is the most widely used selection techniques among all of the selection techniques we have discussed so far, and the selection techniques which we will discuss after the employment interviews as well. First of all, it is very much important to know that what is meant by employment interview, because employment interview is different from other interviews. An employment interview is a conversation. It is a conversation with a purpose. The key word is the purpose between an interview and the job applicant. And what is the purpose? The purpose is to make a selection decision. So it is a conversation between two people, and it can be the conversation between more than two people. But on one side there would be applicant, and on the other side there would be the interviewer. An interviewer can be one interviewer, and it can be a panel of interviewers. So there is a conversation, and at the end of the conversation we should reach at the decision that whether we are going to hire this applicant or we are not going to hire this applicant based on the question asked during the employment interview. So there are a number of options of interview. Some people ask planned question. It enables the interviewer to pursue in depth the applicant's responses. So most of the people in the interview try to ask very planned, structured questions. Such kind of questions or such kind of interviews are called as structured interviews. But there is another continuum, there is another end of the continuum, and other end of the continuum, there is some interviews don't like the patterned interview. They don't like the approach which is so much patterned, which is so much structured. So they believe that it is not too restrictive. If it is too restrictive and you would ask only planned question, it is not a good idea. So there are different kind of managers and a different kind of managers in a different context. If we will talk about the most developed countries of the world, for example, Australian managers, they appear to have a strong preference for unstructured or minimal structured interviews. Means they don't like to ask pattern question. They don't like to ask very fixed question. They want to make it a little bit more open. They want to make it a little less restrictive. So they ask open-ended question without any proper structured pattern, and they ask question according to the situation. If the situation is different, they ask different question, and with the change in the situation, they can change their questions. They would not follow the exact preferences which they have listed in the start of the interview. In contrast, the United States managers, the 70% of the organization use unstructured interviews. Means another 70% of the organization in the United States, they try to ask unstructured questions. They are not in the favor of the patterned questions. And they said that if they would ask patterned question, they would not be able to get in-depth view of the applicant about their job and their previous job and their future plans. So regardless of which method is adopted, question must be job related. This is a key point, my dear student. Whatever the way you are adopting, whether you are going for an unstructured interview or you are going for a structured interview, you have to ask job related question. If it is structured, you have a pattern question, but pattern question must be related to the job. If it is not job related, then it would not be an employment interview. You are just wasting your time. You are just wasting the time of organization. You are just wasting the time of the applicants as well. So your question must be job related in both cases, whether it is a structured or unstructured interview. Under equal employment opportunities legislation, every country have a EEO opportunities. They have EEO legislation, including Pakistan. There is irrelevant and unnecessary question may lead to the charges of discrimination. If your questions are not related to the job for which the person is going to apply, then you may lead to the charges of discrimination. It means you are discriminating with applicant. So you must have a very specific pattern in front of you. You must have a specific job related question in front of you in both cases, whether structured or unstructured, so you can get rid of the charges of the discrimination. Otherwise, if you ask unrelated question, it may lead you to the more discriminatory question, and it may lead you to the charges of discrimination. So being an HR manager, being a line manager, you need to avoid discriminatory questions. You need to avoid unrelated job related questions. As a consequences, many human resource experts that the safest and the fairest type of interviews are the structured or the pattern interviews. Why they are going toward the pattern interviews? Why they are going towards the structured interview? The only reason that they are asking very fair, very job-related question. And if they would not follow the pattern question, there are chances, there is a risk that they would ask not job related question, and those unrelated questions would lead to the charges of discrimination. So it is advised by the HR experts that it is better to keep yourself safest. It is better to ask most safest question or fairest types of interviews are those having a structured or the patterned questions. So better to use the pattern questions so you can keep yourself safe from the EEO legislations.